Hello everyone, my name is Griff, and today I have created, I've separated and put out two different tier lists for the dragons and units available for the free summon. Thought I'd make a quick video just going over my impressions of both the dragons and the adventurers separately, so this is going to be one for dragons and one for adventurers. I'm doing this right off the cuff, so we're just going to go in from what I remember on these units. To start, I think I'm going to do dragons because I honestly think that dragon is pretty easy to do. And essentially what I'm going to do here is I'm going to segment these off by element from what I know and from type, because a lot of dragons have a certain archetype within the pool of dragons. So for example, there's the 60% strength dragons, there's the prime strength dragons, there's the seal damage dragons, all those sort of things. I am going to say about this list, I cannot talk on the Sinister Dominion fight that is dropping tomorrow, because it obviously hasn't come out yet, but I am going to be taking the wind units and the flame units with a slight grain of salt, and preparing them basically and putting them up against what I think Nihility will look like. Well, let's just get started here. To start off, I'm going to place all of the prime strength dragons in C tier. Now the reason I'm doing this, and if I can remember who the prime strength dragons are, which I think there's actually only two in this one. Yeah. So I'm going to put the two of them there. Is there more? Oh yes, there is just one more. Sorry. I'm going to put the three of them here, simply because of the fact that prime strength isn't that amazing. You know, it's decent on backlines. It's better than it's better than most 4-star dragons, but you shouldn't be using this ticket on this. You have a chance of anything that's in this pool, and when comparing it to the other dragons and comparing it to the things that are in this pool, you know, these dragons are not going to be great. But I am going to place them above most of the 60% strength dragons and the 30-30 dragons, which is 30% strength and 30% HP. Simply because I'm actually going to move Nidhogg up one, but I'm going to put them there simply because I feel like they are more specialized in a sense. What they're allowed to do in this sense is really the HP dragons and the sort of, like, I'm going to put the HP dragons in C as well, but the HP dragons and the 50-50 dragons, you know, and the strength dragons are more focused in the pool in the general sense. And I'm actually going to put Cerberus above Agni because Cerberus is better than Agni. But in a general sense, the 60% strength dragons are pretty decent on backline. Actually, you know what? I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to put these here and I'm going to put the prime strength dragons below them. Simply because, in my opinion, the prime strength dragons are a bit worse in practice than the 60% strength dragons. A lot of the times you're going to have specialized dragons on your team, and you're really going to try to buff your backliners, and especially in a normal fight, you may be running these 60% strength dragons on your team. They're not amazing, or not as good as they once were at launch, but they're still pretty decent, and this is not a 60% strength dragon. You're a half and half. You should be down here. Let's get Levi up there. So we do have these dragons here. I put the HP dragons up here as well, simply because the HP dragons are very specialized for healers, and especially Gina Arc and especially Nidhogg are decent options for the healers in Shadow and Light specifically. Garuda's kind of meh because there's so many other different dragons. Freya basically does her job completely better, you know. Azazel does the job. You know, all these different units do the job a bit better in the elements, and that's why I'm actually going to put these specialized characters and specialized healer units sort of in this B tier, because they do serve a purpose. These dragons really do, actually I think I'm going to bump them up to A tier, because these dragons really do serve a purpose within the elements themselves. They really serve a purpose for, you know, buffing your units, buffing your adventurers, and buffing your healers, which is super important. You get that HP and you get that skill haste, which are both really important. And I'm going to keep Submerg down here, because Submerg, while having a good HP effect, is not as good as some of the other dragons in the pool. Now, if you don't have a good healing dragon in water, Submerg is a great option. But there is Halloween Marinimus, which is better than her. There is Gown and Krenna, which I'm going to put straight into S tier. Gown and Krenna is the best dragon to pull, and I'm going to explain why in a bit, but we're just going to straight up, I'm going to make that statement right now. In my opinion, she's the best dragon to pull. Then we're going to go into the skill damage dragons, which is going to be these guys right here. There isn't one for light. Skill damage dragons are also going to go in A. Again, skill damage dragons kind of have that same uniqueness that the 60% strength dragons did. They used to be really good. They used to be the almighty dragons of the tier. And these are prime for your backline. You know, most of the time on a team, you probably have one premium dragon for your lead unit. You probably have one dragon that's on your backline and on your healer. And then you have another DPS slot probably on your team. That's where this should go. You know, that second unit that you don't really have super invested, but maybe you do have invested a little bit, that's where those should go. They are really good at their job. Because what they do is they just buff skill damage as it is, and they give the good buff. Now, there are better dragons for this, especially the Arsene in the Shadow Pool or Cat Sith in the Shadow Pool do Shinobi's job better. But we're not talking about those because they are limited, and I don't really want to compare them to that, and I'm going in assuming that you do not have access to any of these dragons. You know, you have none of these dragons, which one should you pick for your team, kind of thing. Next, I want to go into a specific subcategory of dragons that I kind of want to talk about, which are the resistance dragons. Now, to my knowledge, there's only 2 on this list. And these 2 dragons may seem a little underwhelming, but I'm going to make a case for them being in B tier due to their viability in autoing the Sinister Dominion. In Lilith, Gilgamesh is one of the best dragons to put on Juliet, who's probably one of the best units in that fight for autoing, simply because of the reduced, you know, the tankiness that he gives. And I have a feeling that the same thing will happen with Prometheus in the next fight, so I'm going to put him up here assuming this will happen. But these kind of things, you know, it's kind of hard to talk about them because, you know, I don't really fully know about the fight yet, but also they have a uniqueness within the tankiness that they do. And Dragalia has never really been a game that focused heavily on tankiness until this fight. So tomorrow we might see something different. You know, the auto team might have Prometheus, it might not, it might have someone else completely. I don't know. I'm strictly going off of how I feel. Next, I want to go into these Gen 1 Punisher units, which are these, I believe it's just these 4, and I'm going to put them also in B tier. Now, these guys are a bit more specialized in what they can do, but I'm putting them in B tier strictly because they are generally as good, if not better, than the 60% strength dragons, because in these comps, you're kind of running this, you should put these really in the comps that are running the specific comps. Now, or running the specific afflictions. So if you have a burn team, Apollo should be there, kind of thing. And the reason for that is they really are useful when you have a team that specializes around them, but when you don't have a team that specializes around them, they're not as good as these other backline options. Again, skill damage is going to take over both of them, even in the case where you have the Punisher up. The 60% strength, it's arguable, and I really should put them in C, but I'm going to put them in B strictly because I want to sort of talk about those units as a whole and talk about this sort of double buff meta. And in this double buff meta, where we're talking about having the, you know, for example, Scorch Rend and Burn. You know, if you're running a Scorch Rend Burn team and you have good enablement on both, then you can run Apollo on one of your backline units because you're going to have good burn uptime. You know, you put Unin on there, you put Apollo on Unin, he's a great backline unit because he's going to enable burn and farm Dragon Gauge, all that good stuff. So there is a case to be made where those dragons are better than, for example, Cerberus or Agni. But there is cases where they're worse. So this is a case-dependent pick, but I am going to put them there. Next, I'm going to put a few stinkers down in D tier. Naruthotep, he's one of the only dragons that's ever gotten a buff, and he's still really meh. He focuses on low health units, but basically everything Naruthotep does, I don't remember her name, but this dragon right here does better. So I'm going to put her in D tier. B tier, rather. She is based on low health units. She is extremely good on Belina, and extremely good on, what's his name? Oh, I don't remember. The Blade from that event. I don't remember his name. His name's up in my mind at the moment. However, there are certain units that just generally, she is better on low health units, but also there are dragons that are better than her. So it's kind of a meh, but she does have a specific niche that she does fill pretty well. Nextly, I am going to put actually Ariel in the top of A tier. Now, Ariel is an interesting dragon because she's a skill haste and strength dragon. So she is super good on specific adventures like Dragon Yule, Zanefried, and Silas. I'm waiting for the day that they put her in the essences because I really want to max unbound her, and I haven't yet. but she has the potential to go way farther than some of these other dragons because of that potential. Like I said, these 4 dragons up here have the potential to kind of giving those 2 stats that are really decent, and because they're both so decent, you put them together, they become really good together, kind of thing. You know, it really depends on who you are and what you're running, but those kinds of things are super important for the game as a whole, I believe. And, you know, if you're running Silas, if you're running Dragon Zainfried, she's going to be a premier dragon. She's going to be best in slot even at 0 and bound. At 0 and bound, those are the best dragons. Like, straight up, she's the best dragon for them. No contention. So, I am going to put her up there. Next, we have the skill of critical damage. Now, these guys, I'm going to put in C, but these are hard to rank because there are specific units. For example, Ezalith, whose best in slot dragon is probably not after Nihility, but before Nihility, Arctos was one of her best in slot dragons, simply because she was doing so much critical damage. But the problem is there isn't enough units in the game that are focusing on these that are potential, like have the potential to do enough critical damage. You really need a certain amount of critical damage when you're matching these dragons at all, and then once you reach that threshold, you can go above it. And, you know, Dragon Zainfried kind of helps with this because he buffs the critical rate of the wind unit, so you could put him on a backline. But at the end of the day, he's the same about these. They're all about the same. So when you're talking about I have the ability to pick one dragon, you know, I wouldn't pick them. And that's kind of why I'm putting them so low. Next we have Garland. Garland's going to go in D tier. Garland's mechanic is focused on not getting hit, which in theory is cool, but it's kind of lame and it's kind of weak. And again, you know, you're picking one dragon from this list. You have the ability to pick any of these dragons. Do I recommend you pick him? Absolutely not, kind of thing. And that's kind of going to be the same for him because he has a unique case, and there's a potential for him because he has overdrive damage. And, you know, in Lilith, for example, overdrive is a majority of the fight. But, you know, again, you're talking about the potential of these units. You're talking about what they can do. There are better light dragons to get in this pool specifically already. So, you know, it is what it is. Now, I am going to put these 2. I'm going to talk about these 2 in a bit, but, well, I'll talk about them now. The thing about Siren, and this is Light Siren, is she is incredibly unique as a backline unit. She has the potential of essentially giving a bunch of buffs on her dragon skill, and then she'd use it again, and she kind of expends the dragon gauge. She's used a lot on off element back in the day, like the first times of Volk, but I haven't seen her since. And, you know, I can't in good faith say, oh, you should pick her because of, you know, whatever there is to be there. There's not enough potential in my mind for to actually use her and pick her. So for that reason, I'm going to put her in C tier. And then Chthonius is a dragon ramping character, or a dragon ramping dragon rather, and he basically gets stronger the more times you dragon ramp. And I'm gonna put him in B tier because there are certain adventures that you can pilot that are very good with him, and there's certain ones that are very bad with him. But, you know, he does end up, if you can get, you know, dragon a few times a match, he does end up being better than these dragons in the sense of what he's able to do, but I wouldn't put him above the skill damage dragons. Again, the skill damage dragons are perfect for backline units. Then we're going to talk about God and Credit. GNC is probably, at the moment, the best non-limited dragon in Dragalia Lost. And I'm going to preface this by saying her ability to basically completely carry the water element, in a sense, from what she's able to do in both cheese and out of cheese is astounding. What she does is she gives you back 35% of your skill when you use it. And then her skill puts down a buff zone that raises the skill gauge for anyone who's inside it. Now what this does is it allows healers to have heals up faster, it allows DPS to have skills up faster. There's a lot of units, like basically every class in the game benefits from this dramatically in water. And essentially, if you're able to use the buff zone, you're able to refill all the skills on your team. Now, this is extremely nerfed in Nihility. She's almost... That buff field is unusable in Nihility, but the 35% skill recharge is usable in Nihility. And because of that, she still has this huge potential. So, you know, in something like Legend Twins, if you're running a Karina, or you're running a Galva Elisan, or you're running a healer, you know, you really want to have Gauntlet Krenna. So if you're going to pick a dragon, which I don't think that many people are going to pick a dragon, if they're going to pick a dragon, they're probably going to pick one that's missing from their, you know, backline, one they've wanted for a while, you know, maybe a waifu or something. You know, there's a lot of dragons here to pick from, but Gauntlet Krenna, if I had to pick one character for you to pick from dragon, which is why I'm only putting one character in S tier, if I said you have to pick one dragon from this, it would be them if you don't have her. Especially since she just got added to the essences, which means you can max unbind her for free without having to use any stones. So as far as dragon goes, Gauntlet Krenna is my number one choice. Now let's move on to adventures. Now this is a lot harder because adventures are so unique in what they're able to do, and a lot of the times I forget some of the things that adventures are going to be able to do. So I'm going to make this part, this part's probably going to annoy some people. Characters are going to be lower than people want them to be. Characters are going to be different from where they think. People are going to be upset at this part, and I can't really avoid that. So I'm sorry, but this is just based off my personal opinion. And the two things I want to focus off right now are, you're talking about units before June 2020. And because of that, there are two units here that really shine through, and that is Belina and Grace. Now the thing about Belina and Grace is that Belina is a dagger unit in the Shadow element, and she was one of the first Dragon Drive characters in the game ever. And because of this potential that she has, because of this power that she has, she is extremely good at dispelling and DPS while maintaining at a low HP. Now, she was somewhat nerfed by the ability of Curse and Nihility. She was somewhat put down by it due to the fact that, you know, she can't really have life shields anymore. A lot of people are running healers. I'm probably actually going to put her in A tier for this, and I'm going to keep with my one unit in S tier kind of thing. But she was nerfed by that completely. However, she is still a monster in the hands of someone who's maintaining her, and she is the best unit in the game for everything before Legend Cayenne. And Legend Cayenne, you know, it kind of goes off on a rails. You know, you still see Belinas, but they're not as prevalent. But every Cayenne before that, she is one of the number one best units in the game for it. Next is Grace. Now, if you had to ask me before Nihility what the best unit in the game was, I would say Grace. Now, it's kind of weird to think that a buffer, or a shielder rather, is the best unit in the game, but her ability to use life shields essentially negates a lot of the problems with autoing content. You know, you can put Grace on a team and basically auto anything in the game pre-Nihility, which is, oh well, not the legend difficulties obviously, but master difficulties you see Grace all the time, expert difficulties, you know, everything in the game really focuses on Grace. And because of that and her life shield ability, they kind of put Nihility out to counter one double buff and two Grace. Now, her life shields will not work in Nihility at all. However, her potential outside of Nihility is so drastically high, I would be doing a disservice if I didn't tell you to get her, because she is probably the best unit in the game, disregarding Nihility. Now, regarding Nihility, it's a lot more focused, because again, you're focusing on single element types, so you can't really put Grace into those things. But her ability to go outside of the element, her ability to buff and shield, made the game into what it is today. So that's how strong she is. And if I had to say you should pick one adventurer that you have or want, it should be Grace. Now, a lot of people have Grace due to this fact already. A lot of people have Belina due to the fact already. So this might not be as useful to you, but then we're going to go down the list a bit more. So I'm going to start on the units that I know pretty well, and then I'm going to move on to the units that I don't know pretty well. To start, I'm going to put Juliet in A. Now, Julie was really not great for a long time. She had a 70 MC. She still wasn't that good. But when Lilith came out, there was a real focus on tanky units. And because of that, she is one of the best in the game at that fight. And she's one of the best because her buffs don't get erased. So she's kind of this Gen 1 unit that got buffed into kind of Gen 2, didn't really. But because of her uniqueness, all of her buffs stay into her kit. She loses nothing from Nihility as far as I can remember. Additionally, that fight favors tanky units a lot. She's one of the tankiest units in the game due to her second skill. So because of this, she's one of the best units in the game for Lilith. If you're saying, I need a unit for Lilith, you probably already have one in Luca, but I need a unit for Lilith, rather. She's one of the best. And additionally, Hildegard is one of the best. Now, when Galazena came out, there was a lot of focus on, is Hildegard better than Galazena? And a lot of the consensus was no. Galazena in practice is better. However, in a fight like Lilith, where you really need a lot of heals really constantly and quickly, a classic healer like Hildegard plus her 70 MC really carries that fight. So she's one of the best units in the game due to the fact that she's able to heal. And it's interesting how they kind of went from a meta from we don't need healers to we really, really need healers. And I'm going to kind of put Zhongzi in the same place because she really focuses again on healing, and in the second phase of Lilith in Master, she is one of the most needed units in the game because you really need the heals, and there really isn't much in the pool other than, you know, a few other units. There's Dragon New Lily obviously, but if you don't have access to Dragon New Lily, who's limited, she is one of the best units you can get for healing. So just straight up, I'm gonna put her there. Next, I'm gonna put in Summer Cleo in A tier for a more odd reason per se. I would not recommend running this unit in Lilith because of what she, you know, Lilith will counter her. But her shared skill is probably one of the best in the game for cheesing things that require double buff, require Karina. Obviously, Karina before the Nihility nerfs was one of the best units. In those fights where you're able to use double buff to its full potential, she still is. And a lot of that comes from Summer Cleo's shared skill, which instantly refreshes everyone's first skill in the area and gives them 4 or 5 buffs. So if you're looking for a missing piece of that puzzle, you have Karina, you know, you have Gown and Krenna, you have Xander, shared skill, and you're really looking for that like last thing that you need, it's probably Summer Cleo, because her shared skill will really carry you through. It's kind of odd I'm putting her there, but it is a reason to put her up there. The next thing I'm going to talk about is Ezzelith. Now, Ezzelith is a dagger, and she was really bad at the start of the game. She had a 70 MC around the time of Volk and was really good. She's one of the premier units in Volk, especially during the cheese meta. Now, cheese meta still exists to an extent. It will come back in the next week or so when we have double drops, so look forward to that. But she is one of the best in the game for that reason. And because of this, what she kind of does, she kind of basically stacks buffing and she stacks critical rate on her top of herself with her first skill, and then she uses Xander and Karina shared skill to kind of do a bunch of damage and new content. So I'm kind of considering putting her in B tier because she is kind of this Gen 1 unit that's kind of, she's extremely nerfed by Nihility. I do want to point that out. She does not get any of her critical rate buffs by Nihility, and that's basically the entire unit. So super good in Volk, bad in Nihility. Kind of meta, I have to say. Presumably, I'm presuming she'll be bad in Nihility due to what we're seeing. Now, again, the Nihility fight comes out tomorrow. Who knows how that fight will actually end up being, but my pretext on it is that she will be bad in Nihility. Next, I'm going to get into a few of the more so irrelevant units from the past. I am going to put Gala Ellie in D tier simply because there was a lot of time where, not Gala Ellie, Wedding Ellie was the premier healer in win content because you really didn't need a lot of healing. You really didn't need a lot of potential from healing because a lot of the more water units were tanky rather than attacking. That's no longer the case, and Lowen really outshines her in every single way, and so does Templar Hope if you're stacking these double buffs. Now, she might come back with Nihility, but as far as I'm aware, she's completely nerfed by Nihility because she's focusing on debuff and buffing units, which don't work in Nihility. So, as far as I'm aware, with the information I have, again, this could change, but anytime you would want to run Wedding Ellie, Lowen or Templar Hope seem to fix that job for me, or a shared skill defense zone fixes that job for me. So she really is lost to time, unfortunately, but she does have some potential. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put Christy as well in D tier. Christy has kind of always been outcast by Victor, even when she launched. It's an unfortunate truth. And due to that fact, she kind of loses a lot of her uniqueness, because her uniqueness comes from, basically, if you don't take damage, you are able to do more damage. Problem is, there's a lot more screen wipes and a lot more force damage in Dragalia now, especially in Ciela. So it's a lot harder to keep that up. I'm going to put Luis in A tier, she's one of the best win units after her 70 MC. She's super good at cheesing content. For the same reason, I'm going to put Hawk in B tier. Hawk used to be the premier win unit, used to be the premier win bow after his buff. He's gone down now, but he's, again, super good at solo cheesing the endgame content for the High Dragons, so I am going to put him there, kind of as a remembrance. And a thing to point out is the units that are meta for these old fights that aren't meta in Nihility still serve a purpose. You know, you still need to grind out the Agito Uprising to get all the weapons. You still need to grind out the High Dragons to get the dragon bonuses or the weapon bonuses that you want. There are things that old fights that don't have Nihility are still important to a degree. So it is important to focus on them in that sense. I'm going to put Mitsuba in A tier. She's a super good water unit. She's a super good cheese unit as well. So that's pretty good. I'm going to put Ciela in B tier. The thing about her is that, or Soliera? I don't remember. She has a shared skill that inflicts bog. Kind of why I'm putting her up there. There's a lot other units that kind of do the same thing she does, but you know, she is one of the best shared skills. I have her shared skill back in the day. Xander, I am going to put also in B tier, kind of for the same reason of this. Actually, I'm going to put him in A tier. Again, it's kind of this we're talking before Nihility kind of implications. You know, these two shared skills here are the two best in the game for Karina. She really needs them to hit her maximum potential. So if you have them, you know, that might be something, oh, I want to stay up with Karina busting down content, but I don't have these two units, kind of thing. There's a point for them. I'm going to put Lee in D tier. I don't know if I really need to explain this one. I've never seen a Lee be used after her launch. Just straight up, I've never seen one in pubs. That is how bad this unit is. Eden is a better flame sword than she ever will be. So, it's a bit unfortunate, but maybe with Nihility that will change. I doubt it, but there's a chance. Nefaria is an interesting case. Nefaria, I'm going to put her in C tier. Nefaria was a buffed unit that was basically really bad at launch, got buffed so she was a bit better, got poison meta slapped on her, and then she was really good because she had Dispel back in the early days of Cayenne. Nowadays, there's way better units with Dispel. You know, Abirius dispels every skill and every dragon attack. She has to kind of get her second skill up to Dispel. But she does have potential, and she is good enough to be a backliner in that fight per se if you do want a 70 MC here. Yaten, I'm going to put in D. I haven't seen Yaten ever since his launch. Natalie is an interesting unit because she focuses on being at low HP, and at a time she was better than Ieyasu when Ieyasu was the best unit in the game, but now she kind of loses out on that. Cassandra is another unit that is just horrible. I, again, don't really ever see them. I've seen them maybe a couple times, but there are so many better Shadow Wands. Vampy is a better Shadow Wand than Cassandra. And even with the implications that she has for the future, it doesn't seem to be that good. This could change, obviously. Lathna and Forte. I'm going to put Forte above Lathna strictly because I feel what Forte does, Lathna just does slower. Not necessarily worse, but just slower. You know, Forte is one of the best ramping units in the game. She really farms dragon. She does a lot of damage while in dragon form. Lathna kind of focuses on poison more so than dragon ramping, but she does both. But poison's kind of on its way out, and it's something to note that these units do have a sort of potential that are good, but again, there are better units in both elements, especially for this tier list. One of the units that is better in Shadow than these two is Delphi. Now, Delphi is a very strange unit because Delphi focuses primarily on debuff zones and countering. Now, the thing is that debuff zones do actually work in Nihility, and I noticed I said that about Elisan, that she focuses on debuff and buff zones. Buff zones don't work, debuff zones do. And Delphi has probably one of the best in the game. He has it on like a 10-second cooldown. His cooldowns are completely tied to time and not tied to how much you're attacking. And because of this, Delphi is really the ultimate kind of DPS support unit in a sense, because his damage is severely nerfed by his passive. But because of that, he's able to carry things like, you know, strength defibrillator, you know, other things that you would want on a fight but you don't really have a place to slot in. He can kind of slot them in, and because of that, he's an excellent backline unit. He's an excellent, you know, supportive unit. He really is a star shadow unit at this point. Next, I'm going to just get rid of some of the units I don't have much to talk about. Petitions Arden, again, haven't seen since his launch. Zubashe, haven't seen since launch. Really unfortunate. Laura Noah, haven't seen him forever. Student Maribel, haven't seen him forever. Chelsea is interesting. There's a potential for her to be good in this next fight, but I don't think it will happen. I'm going to put these two up here strictly because, again, they have a potential. Actually, no, they don't. Ramona has a potential. Reina really focuses on defense buffs, which won't be used in the Hildy at all. And if you're talking about blades, there are better blades. And unfortunately, Makoto falls into the same pool because Makoto actually works on skill shift and an attack rate buff, both of which will be nerfed. So he will not have his skill, he won't be able to charge to his second form of his first attack or third, and he won't be able to raise his attack rate. So basically they gutted him, as far as I know at least. Valentine's Hildegard. Most of the time I would rank her below Halloween Lowen, strictly due to the potential that Halloween Lowen has. Halloween Lowen's probably one of the best healers in the game, period. And not bragging because I have a Lowen channel or anything, but he just is. And because of that, he kind of misses out on a lot of the potential, or rather, she misses out on a lot of potential she could have. But it's possible that she could be good in the Hildy meta. And if you don't have Halloween Lowen, she is the second best, I believe, from what I can remember. Maybe Vanessa will be better, but I doubt it. She doesn't even have a regen. So, you know, actually, no, yes, she does. I don't remember. Either way, I just forget all these old healers because I've been using Lowen since he came out. But she's kind of meh. But if you do need a healer for the fight, you could put her in there. Summer Julieta, unfortunately, does not have the same potential that her partner does here, so I'm just going to put her in D tier for now. Again, a lot of these I don't have a lot to talk about, but it's more so you have the option to pick any of the units, and it's not so, oh, where do these rank in between each other? It's ranking, I have the option to pick any of these, which should I pick? And that's why I'm putting so many so low. Wedding Aoi kind of falls into the same pool. She's super niche, but not really, she doesn't really have that much potential in fights, as far as I can tell, at least from what I can remember. She inflicts sleep, but sleep really isn't, you know, punishable, so it's kind of difficult. Kasha kind of falls into the same pool as Valentine's Hildegard because she is a backline healer, but she has been eclipsed by a Lowen. Unfortunate. Summer Vanessa, no, I don't remember her name now. I'm blanking, but she unfortunately got completely eclipsed by Grace. Now, since Grace is kind of dead, she kind of has a potential in Nihility, so I am going to put her in B tier as well. But I don't know how well that's going to work out in the long run. Cleo is honestly just so good at what she does for a 70 MC and a free unit that it's kind of unfortunate. Hindwald, unfortunately, is going in D tier. He got completely eclipsed by Nihility, and even before Nihility, he wasn't that good. Basically, anytime that you would want to use Hindwald, Grace kind of did the job better, or Delphi did the job better, or Double Buff with Patia did the job better, and after Nihility, he's unusable. So, it's unfortunate, but I gotta put him down there. Curran, I'm gonna put Curran in C tier. He's a decent Punisher unit, he has a decent 70 MC, but he's not great, and that's kind of unfortunate. It's kind of the unfortunate truth of Curran. Naveed is an interesting sword because he does actually have Dispel and he does actually have a bit of ramping, but he's kind of hard to rank. And I'm going to put him in B tier for here. I don't know how his custom buff will work with Nihility. If it's ruined and if it's removed, he will straight up not be usable, unfortunately, because he focuses so heavily on that buff. If it is usable and he is able to do the things that he's able to do, then he'll be a bit better. But in general practice, I do think Yuden is the better choice between the two, and Yuden again is free. You know, Yuden again has a 70 MC. He also has a 70 MC, but Yuden generally, you know, he enables burn, he has defense down, he farms dragon, he has all these good things that actually, I believe he has dispel on all dragon attacks, just like Alvirius. He has all these good things that kind of get eclipsed by Naveed, or rather, he kind of eclipsed Naveed with them. Lily is a very old unit, and she's a good freeze enabler. However, that's all. I don't really see Lilies anymore due to how stacked the water pool is at this point. You never really see them anymore. So she does still have the potential, but she's not as strong as she once was, so I'm going to put her in C. Valerio's kind of in the same pool. Again, I haven't really seen... There's never been a case in this game where I've seen Valerio be rather focused over Mitsuba. Mitsuba really does everything that Valerio does, just better, in my opinion. So, these two both focus on energy, which has been completely eclipsed by Nihility. And even before then, they weren't that good. I am going to put Emily up one because she has a Scared Shield that inflicts, I believe, stun. So she does have potential there, I guess, but, you know, it's not really that great. The Leviathan Champion. Now, he's a difficult one to rank because, in all honesty, I think he has a lot of potential, but he kind of is eclipsed by everything else in the life pool. So I am going to have to put him down in C tier. And Radiant Zhongzhang is kind of the same thing. Now, I'm actually going to put her in B tier because she actually is a wand. She has a focus mechanic. She's able to buff the team to an extent. It's kind of nerfed by Nihility. But she does have paralyzed reduction of rate. So if you're running a paralyzed team, she is really good on that team in that sense. Whew, we're almost done here. Victor, I'm just going to put Victor in C tier. He's not really used anymore. He was really good for a time. He is a really good unit still, but he misses out on a lot of things. Lin Yu, I'm going to put in B tier. Kind of falls into the same pool as Ezalith, where she's a really good unit if she's able to stack her buffs. She isn't, you're never going to see her. And I don't think she's really going to make a splash in Nihility due to the fact that she won't be able to be stacking critical rate. If you have her with a Dragon Yule Zainfried in the background and you have all these other units with her that really are buffing her up, you know, you have her partner Dragon, she's a monster. Outside of that, Silas, I'm going to put in A tier. He, again, is one of the best buffers in the game. And I'm going to put Tobias in the same... I'm going to put Tobias below him. The thing about Silas is that he's not really a buffer. I misspoke. He's not really a buffer per se. He's more of a debuffer. And he has the second skill when he's 70 MC that really allows him to make fights that are against the wind element safer. He really is one of the biggest counters to Ciela and what she's able to do. So he's pretty cool. Lazari, I have never seen this unit. I'm going to be completely honest. Same with Urius. These two, I think I'm going to put Urius a little higher because he does have Dragon Drive, he does have uniqueness. Lazari, I've literally never seen in any fights. And again, I don't really have her. I don't have the potential to talk about her. But given the choice, I would not pick her. Maribel, base Maribel is also... I'm going to put her in C tier. She has some potential to do a lot of nuke damage, but again, she's kind of outclassed by the other characters in Wind. If you're talking about nuke damage, Luis is right there. You know, if you're talking about utility, Silas is right there. She does have a defense down on her first skill, I guess. She really focuses on being full on HP. So, you know, it's kind of meh. And for the same reason, I'm going to put Zainfried there. Zainfried is a dragon ramping character in water, which is fine. You know, when he got reworked and he got his 70 MC, he was pretty strong. But again, water is so heavily stacked with just... Look at these three units right here. Every unit in... Like, these three are so much stronger than the other units. So it's kind of hard to debate putting them that high. But I have ranked every unit. Again, number one unit in... If you have to pick, if you don't have her, Grace. Otherwise, go to A tier, fit your needs. Best Dragon, Ganon Krena. Otherwise, go to A tier, fit your needs. This is a list based on my opinion. I'm sure I'm wrong. I'm like positive I'm wrong here. So, you know, or rather, not that I'm wrong, but there is a lot of debate to be made. I'm kind of just quickly making this to give people a general oversense on my opinion of them. If you disagree, make sure you leave a comment. Leave a comment of who you're going to pick, because I'm interested who people are going to pick. As I said in my last video, I'm picking Belina. I was already going to do it. Having Belina will give me every dagger in the game. Pretty cool. But I'm interested to see who other people will pick. And I'm interested to see some of the cases for these other units. So I really hope we can have a discussion in the comments, and I'll be sure to respond to everyone who says anything. That's going to be it for me for today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.